Sometimes someone speaks up, might be an employee, might be a former employee, or might be a family member. And yesterday we saw that an interview of a family member can cause severe problems to an organization, in this case, the royal family. And of course, when someone speaks up and accuses you of wrongdoing, you have to react. The main question is, how do you react properly? And I have a senior professional here. Hello and welcome, Alan Stevens.
Thank you very much indeed, Niels. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much to take the time, and I get straight into the topic. We now heard that Meghan Markle pretty much accused the royal family of racism by saying that they were discussing how dark the baby's skin color will be. Just putting this into a corporate context, let's just imagine someone leaves your organization because in this case, someone left the royal family as well, and then speaks up and accuses you of wrongdoing after they left. Yeah. What is the right reaction? Should you immediately react? Should you wait a couple of days? What is the proper reaction when someone leaves your organization and after they left, they decided to speak up?
You should respond as quickly as possible. And the reason for that is if you don't, then something else will come in to fill that news vacuum. Mm-hmm. If you're accused of something, your organization is accused of something, and you fail to comment, you fail to deny it, you fail to address the issue, somebody else, a potential competitor or rival, will comment instead, and that becomes the story.
So let's just assume someone accuses an organization of discrimination, and then most likely the statement will be, "We never done that." The risk, of course, you run then is that the person that, "Oh, you've done that. Here are the cases A, B, C, D, E," and you've actually done it.
Yeah, what you have to do in that circumstance, until you've got all of the facts together, until it's been fully investigated, you've got to issue a holding statement. You've got to state your policy on racism or sexism or whatever it is. You've got to make it very clear what the corporation's policy is. You then say, we take this with the utmost seriousness, and we are instituting an immediate investigation, and we will reveal the outcome of that as soon as we possibly can. So in other words, you make your position clear. You cannot deny something if you haven't got all the facts. It may be that somebody in your organization did do that, in which case they need to be dealt with and probably got rid of. But you can't come out as a spokesperson for an organization and say, we don't do that, we never did that, because if it turns out you did, that just makes it worse.
Absolutely. And I mean, the timing couldn't be any worse. It's International Women's Day, and we have racism against a woman and a woman of a minority. So it can't get any worse. But let's just stick to the idea what normally happens. So let's say a large organization is accused of racism, and they say something happened, it was wrong, and we remove the person. Often people will say, good reaction, but it doesn't solve the problem because the problem is institutionalized. How do I deal with an aspect? So, for example, let's say we have a bank, and then there is a financial fraud going on, and someone says, we fired the manager who did the financial fraud. Anyone will say, okay, that's one person gone, and you're still getting away with maybe 1,000 other cases.
Yeah, what you've got to say is that you have a zero tolerance for that kind of behavior, and that as a result of somebody alerting you to that you will root out any similar behavior and deal with it accordingly. And in addition to that, you've got to say you'll remind all of your staff, you'll retrain your staff. You'll remind them of their obligations. You've got to go for this thoroughly.
Okay, because that will be my next question. We have seen when something went wrong at Starbucks. Starbucks had, I think, 2 or 3 occasions where they had issues, and then they decided to have a global shutdown of all locations for a half day or full day training on the issue. So in your opinion, additional countermeasures where people can see they actually do something are much needed.
Absolutely, and that was a good move by Starbucks. The fact is, they took the issue seriously. They said, we're going to deal with this. Here's how we're going to deal with it. And there was a very obvious and public demonstration of what they did. They closed the stores for half a day in order to retrain their staff or remind their staff of their obligations. That was a smart move, in my view. Very smart.
So getting back to the royal family now, you're born in Britain, and of course you know the royal family, and of course Britain way better than most other people do who are listening to this podcast and who may not come from the UK. Will the royal family give a public statement on that interview?
It would be very unlikely. It's very, very rare for the royal family to come out and make a public statement about any accusations that have been leveled against them. They do tend to close ranks. They tend to give out information through a spokesperson close to the royal family, or somebody who, a palace insider will sometimes be quoted. A name won't be used. Certainly none of the royals themselves will actually make a statement on the record. So what you do, they will rely on some of their friends in the press to get the news out there, to get their side of the story out. It's already happened. With regard to this issue, they got their retaliation in first. They already started attacking Meghan, claiming that she was a bully, claiming that her charity was a bit suspect, and all sorts of things have come out in order to try and undermine what happened in that interview.
But according to your words, that is not the best way to handle it, right?
No.
When I'm an organization, not the royal family, would you recommend any organization to start a counterattack on the person who made the statement?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's a dreadful thing to do. And it's because, the royal family is a unique and ancient institution and has its own way of doing things. And in a sense, there's almost no sanction. It's quite hard to get thrown out of the royal family. In fact, it was interesting that Harry made a statement that he said his father and his brother are trapped inside the royal family. He said that in the interview with Oprah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yes, it is. It is, in a sense, once you're born into that, there isn't any way out. It looks like Harry has found a way out, which may be what he wanted. But once you're born into it, it's very difficult to escape that.
So that means, from a formal point of view, the royal family is not doing the communications bit right, but they get away with it because they are the royal family?
I think they, if you want to use the term get away with it, or they manage it, because there are so many people in the UK, where I am right now, that are royalist. And if they're not overtly royalist, if they wouldn't, if starting from scratch, they wouldn't propose a royal family to run a country, they respect the royal family, particularly the Queen. The Queen is much loved. And I don't think she's part of this debate, this dispute at all. I think it's at another level, or other individuals in the family. We'll never find out who it is. There'll be rumour and speculation. But I think what people tend to think about the royal family here is that they've got a long tradition, a lot of ceremonial tradition. They're an asset to the country in terms of bringing people here as tourists and so on. And I think even if people don't like them, they say, well, fair enough. There's they might as well stay.
Well, from a financial point of view, it is certainly about Queen & Co. is one of the most profitable businesses the UK has, and they pay their taxes like anyone else does. So yes, it is a profitable business institution. However, when my information is right, there is a certain gap between the popularity of the Queen and Prince Charles, isn't it? As a Brit, you might confirm.
Yeah, there is, and that's absolutely true. That the Queen is almost without criticism as far as what she's done, and I would join in that. She's behaved incredibly well throughout her reign. Whereas Charles has been up and down, is not really what you call a much loved character. We know that he's behaved in not the best possible way with regard to his first marriage, and a lot of people hold that against him.
Of course, yeah. So let's getting back to the business bit here. When I'm an organization and someone accuses me of wrongdoing, you now said a counterattack is not a wise choice. No. What if I hold proper evidence against that person and I know that this person actually had a lot of wrongdoing by themselves? Should I deal with it in a completely different way during a different time? Should I not mention it at all? Or should I just say, okay, we have done something wrong. However, looking at the history of that person, you also have to know X, Y, Z. What is your advice on that? There's
very little mileage in that last option. If you're going to attack your attacker, then that creates a kind of downward spiral, and nobody comes out of it well. I think what you've got to do, you've got to address the accusations that are made and deal with those as they are, and make sure that you come out of that in the best possible way. There really isn't any benefit at all in attacking your attacker. If other people were to do that, and one way that that can happen is that a leak will happen. Information will be passed out. But if you do it yourself as an organization, you're going to look as bad as they are. It's never a good idea.
Okay. Great. So if some people now face, let's say, criticism, so for example, a couple of companies now were criticized of, on the one hand, they say we have a financial crisis, we are shutting down location. On the other hand, we do not see significant cuts on board level, neither when it comes to income nor on the level of people who are on board level, and they pretty much all stay. Is that one of the aspects where you can where you would say it's impossible to save that from a communications aspect, or is there a way how I could communicate that this actually makes sense?
Well, it does depend on the specific issue, of course, but as a general point, it's very difficult to defend getting rid of a lot of staff and retaining the same number of people on the board and retaining their remuneration, and also, if necessary, giving them bonuses. And that has happened in the past, where failing companies have started giving their directors bonuses, and that's indefensible. You really can't get away with that. I think what you've got to do is you've got to show empathy. You've got to demonstrate that you understand people's views. You've got to take a hit yourself. You've got to show that either there are some positions being lost at a high level, or people aren't going to get increases or bonuses or anything like that. It's that thing where people say, "I know how you feel." You've got to believe that. You've got to believe that. It can't be just words, because a lot of people will say it and they don't mean it. They're just trying to be nice. But you've got to demonstrate by your actions that you are taking action to show that, yes, not only do you empathize with the people who are losing their jobs or whatever it is, getting shorter hours, that you're suffering in the same way yourself. You've got to take the hit.
Excellent. This is excellent advice. Of course, I'm going to put your contact data in the show notes of this podcast so people can get in contact with you directly, book you as a speaker or as a consultant for their communication, which I can only highly recommend. So at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing for me left to say. Alan, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure as always, Niels. Thank you very much.